Albert Einstein, when we hear that name, our minds conjure the image of the ultimate genius. We see the unruly hair, the kind eyes, and the formula E equals mc squared, which forever altered our understanding of the universe. We think of his legacy, of relativity, of black holes, of cosmology. But today, we will set aside theories of spacetime and ask a far more down-to-earth, yet no less fascinating question: what was the financial standing of the man whose ideas literally reshaped our world? Was Einstein rich? Did he live a life of luxury befitting his status, or did his genius exist in a realm detached from material concerns? Today, we are embarking on a detective investigation. We will travel across decades and, with maximum precision, translate Albert Einstein's personal fortune into $2025. This journey will tell us not just about money, but about the man himself, his time, and how we measure value. To understand Einstein's financial portrait, we must forget modern notions of tech billionaires earning fortunes from patents and IPOs. Einstein's era was different. His wealth wasn't a monolith, it was more like a mosaic, pieced together from several key elements. The first and most stable element was his academic salary. In 1933, fleeing the Nazi threat in Germany, Einstein moved to the US and took a position as a professor at the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton. His annual salary was an impressive $10,000. To grasp the magnitude of this sum, we need context. The US was in the grip of the Great Depression. Banks were failing, unemployment was soaring, and the average American family income was barely $1,500 a year. Thus, Einstein was earning more than 6 times what the average citizen made. The second significant financial injection was the Nobel Prize. Ironically, he won it in 1922 not for his most famous work on relativity, which was still too revolutionary and controversial, but for explaining the photoelectric effect. The monetary award was 121,572 Swedish kronor, which, at the exchange rate of the time, equated to roughly $32,250, a veritable fortune in post-World War I Europe. And the third, less predictable source was royalties from his numerous publications, articles, and public appearances. His famous paper on the electrodynamics of moving bodies, which first featured E equals mc squared, was only 3 pages long. Imagine if he had received royalties every time it was mentioned in a textbook. Now we arrive at the most complex and intriguing part of our investigation, converting these historical sums into modern dollars. Here lies the main trap, the naive inflation calculator. If we simply use the official US inflation calculator, we get the following figures. $10,000 from 1933 is roughly $240,000 today. The $32,250 Nobel Prize from 1922 is about $600,000. It creates the impression that Einstein was a very comfortable professor, but by no means wealthy. However, this method is fundamentally flawed. It only shows how many dollars from that time you would need to buy a similar basket of goods today. It does not reflect the real economic weight and status that this money provided. Therefore, economists use a more advanced method, comparing economic share. Let's apply it. Einstein's salary, $10,000, was 6.66 times larger than the average worker's salary, $1,500. The average salary in the US for 2024 to 2025 is about $65,000. Let's multiply $65,000 asterisk 6.66 equals $432,900 per year asterisk asterisk. That's much closer to reality. But we can go even deeper and compare his salary not to the median, but to the GDP per capita. In 1933, the GDP per capita in the US was about $500. Einstein's salary was 20 times higher than this figure. Today, the GDP per capita is about $80,000. Multiply by 20, and we get $1.6 million per year. This range, $430,000 to $1.6 million, shows how complex these calculations are. But if we look at his position, one of the greatest minds in the world at a leading American institute, the equivalent of his salary in 2025 can confidently be estimated at $1 to $1.5 million annually. Let's apply the same economic share method to his Nobel Prize. In 1922, its size was staggering. For comparison, the average price of a new car was about $500. With the prize, you could buy 64 cars. The average price of a new car in the US today is about $50,000. Let's multiply 64 * $50,000 equals $3.2 million. Another angle, in 1922, with that money, you could buy several apartment buildings. Today, the cost of such assets is measured in millions. Thus, the modern equivalent of Einstein's Nobel Prize is not $600,000, but rather $3-4 million. And what about his royalties? Here the story becomes entirely speculative. If his work, especially the foundations of modern technology, e.g., lasers, which are based on the theory of stimulated emission, had been patented and generated royalties like Nikola Tesla's patents, his fortune would have been astronomical, possibly in the billions. But Einstein was not a businessman. His intellectual property largely served humanity free of charge. His main assets were real estate and modest savings. So, what was the final result? At the time of his death in 1955, Albert Einstein left behind an estate valued at approximately $65,000. A simple inflation adjustment gives us a figure of $750,000 in today's money. For an ordinary person, that's a comfortable retirement and an inheritance for the kids. For one of the most recognizable and influential people in history, that is extremely modest. However, if we evaluate not just his liquid assets but also his earning potential, his annual salary equivalent of $1 to $1.5 million and the one-time receipt of a Nobel Prize worth $3 to $4 million, we see a picture of hidden wealth. Einstein was part of the intellectual elite, a salary aristocrat. He lived very comfortably, free from financial worries, but he was not a capitalist accumulator. His home in Princeton was modest, his lifestyle simple. His real currency was ideas. He could have monetized his image, his face was ubiquitous, but he preferred to spend time thinking rather than chasing wealth. His indifference to money was part of his charisma. It's fascinating to ponder what he would think of today's financial world, of the fortune of an Elon Musk, who, ironically, builds rockets to fly to Mars using equations derived by Einstein decades ago. That his own image has become a brand, sold on t-shirts and posters worldwide. Would he shake hands with modern Silicon Valley titans as heirs to the spirit of innovation, or would he consider all this money frenzy a waste of time, distracting from the pursuit of the universe's great mysteries? Thus, the attempt to translate Einstein's wealth into modern dollars is more than a mathematical exercise. It's a profound lesson on the nature of value. We can measure the cost of bread, gasoline, or a car in different eras. But how do you measure the value of an idea that gave us laser surgery, GPS navigation, and an understanding of how our universe works? Its price is infinite. Albert Einstein's true fortune was his insatiable curiosity, his rebellious spirit, and his ability to see what was hidden from others. And this fortune he did not bequeath to his heirs, he gifted it to all of humanity, and we are still collecting the dividends from that gift today. What do you think? Should the geniuses of today, whose inventions changed the world, become billionaires? Or should the greatest discoveries be the property of humanity? Share your opinion in the comments, we are very interested to hear your point of view. If you found this investigation useful and fascinating, support our channel, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss our next journeys into the intersection of history, science, and money. Thank you for watching.